How's it going, everybody? My name is Cam White, and welcome back to your favorite weekly horoscope. What the fuck is going on in the universe for June 29th through July 5th of 2020? Thank you guys so much for being here with me, making sure you watch this video. Thank you for liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. I'm super excited you guys can be here with me this week. Well, I'm excited you guys can be here. I'm not excited about talking about this week. We have a lot to talk about. This is one of the biggest weeks. This is probably the most anticipated week in the astrology so far. Well, I don't even say so far. 2020 has had a lot, and we still have a lot of big things to go. But this is definitely one of the bigger things. So let's go ahead and jump straight into it because we have a lot to discuss today. First things first, as we start this week off on Monday, we're going to be having the moon enter Scorpio, immediately making that square to Saturn. And, coming off from a moon in Libra, where things are kind of like nice and passive and a little bit easy, going into that moon in Scorpio mode is definitely like, things are all of a sudden intense. Things are all of a sudden very real. The moon in Scorpio, when we talk about, where a planet likes to be, the moon finds its fall in Scorpio, which, the moon doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of room to work with in Scorpio. The moon only has so much it can do in Scorpio. And I think as the moon goes into Scorpio, goes into its detriment, or not its detriment, its fall, and then makes an immediate square to Saturn, as you can see here, now that Saturn is at 0 Aquarius, there's this tension that builds up of like, moon in Scorpio can be very like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like vindictive? I think that's the word I'm looking for. Like when you're just like, this is how I want things to be. There's no way around it. I don't want to say stubborn because stubborn is too easygoing. Like this is Scorpio. Like it's going to give you a hard time for challenging, what it wants to do. And as the moon goes into Scorpio, there's kind of like this intense, like, drive to do something a certain way, see something a certain way, react a certain way. And that's going to be not good for Saturn in Aquarius because Saturn in Aquarius there is like, well, while you are throwing your hissy fit over there, this is the way we all have to act. It's kind of like when the whole, like if you guys ever remember in like school how the teacher would punish the whole class for one student's like misbehavior. That's kind of like the moon going to Scorpio squaring Saturn in the first on Monday. There's this sense of, emotional tension that kind of gets in the way of, I don't want to say the greater good, but kind of like how everything is supposed to be. And I think on a more personal level, not trying to involve this with everybody, but just more specifically you guys, like as individuals, this is just going to kind of feel like, you want to do things a certain way, but that's not the way that you can do them. We're going to have to be a little bit more, I don't want to say open-minded, but, we're not going to have a lot of individuality here. There's a lot more of like, you're going to have to like, just because you think you're all that doesn't mean you don't have to wait in line just like everybody else. And there's this like, uckiness to that of like, it reminds me of like, I went to IKEA not that long ago because I needed to get a bed frame. My bed frame kept breaking. And at IKEA, I had to wait in the goddamn longest line I had ever been in. And it was just like, I didn't think like, oh, I'm special, I need to go in front. But it's also like, yep, I'm just like everybody else. I got to wait in line just like everybody else. And that's kind of like, but there was like this like, disgust to it almost like, it's all, there's COVID out there. I don't want to get sick and everything. And everyone brings their whole fucking family to IKEA for no reason. So I think the moon going to Scorpio on Monday brings the sense of urgency to like, and this intenseness to our emotions and how we feel. And there's this like, it's very real and it's squaring Saturn. So there's this like, blockage to getting what we want or doing things the way that we want to. Moon in Scorpio very much wants to see things its way, very much wants it to be on its own terms. And Saturn Aquarius is basically saying no. So I think on Monday it is kind of stressful to go into Monday. However, also on Monday, we're going to be having Jupiter conjoining Pluto for the second time as it's now retrograde. And this isn't necessarily bad. I don't think it's going to be awful. I think Jupiter conjoining Pluto, this is really, I think you're going to see more of the government talk about like stimulus checks and stuff like that, really ramping up the economy. And I think it was Chris Brennan that said, he was like, oh yeah, Jupiter conjoining Pluto, all the conspiracy theories are, are blowing up right now. I think on a more personal level, Jupiter conjoining Pluto, I've been reading this book, actually. I'm going to do a shameless plug here. I'm not making money off this, but this book, Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport, I've been reading it a lot, and there's a quote in here that really stuck out to me. And I think I talked about this in last week's video. I think I did talk about this in last week's video. Sorry if I'm repeating myself, but like with Jupiter and Capricorn, less is more, but also more is less. And I think Jupiter conjoining Pluto is that sense of like one little thing can mean a bigger thing, and one big thing can actually be really small depending on how you look at it. Jupiter, that planet of our thoughts, I know not our thoughts like Mercury, but like more of our beliefs, more of our idealism, right? Jupiter is very grounded in reality right now in Capricorn, but it's not good handling reality. So it's trying to find ways to escape. And I think Jupiter conjoining Pluto is creating that fear around the reality, creating that like this one little thing is now blowing up super disproportionately. And all of the big things that we should be worried about are actually really small. And so there's this, I think on Monday, there's a need for a reality check. Mars is in Aries now, so things are happening really fast. With that moon squaring Saturn too, there's this like urgency. It's very reactionary is a good way to put it. But as Jupiter is conjoining Pluto now retrograde, Jupiter conjoining Pluto moving forward when it was all direct was very much like, here's how everything is and be afraid of everything, but all of the things that you should be afraid about, don't be afraid of them. As it's retrograde, I think there's some reconciliation to that. I think there's some thoughtfulness to that. And I want you guys to challenge yourselves of like, where can you ground your thoughts and your your optimism more in reality? Not saying to be more pessimistic, not saying to be more, one side or the other, but ground your thoughts more in reality and don't let things blow out of proportion. I think on Monday, it's going to be really, really easy to react. It's going to be really, really easy to like, so it's kind of like when your emotions are invested into something, it's easier to react without impulse, on impulse and without consideration of other things. And so on Monday, I think that's going to come up really strong. So just be careful. Like, if you're driving on the road and someone up, let's say 100 feet in front of you starts slowing down, you don't just slam on the brakes. You also slowly step on the brakes to slowly stop. You don't just slam on the brakes to completely stop. And I think on Monday, it's going to be really easy to just react and just slam on the brakes because something happened in front of you. Don't do that. Just keep going, or don't just keep going. You don't want to wreck, but like slow down on the brakes. With Mars and Aries too, it's like we want to go fast. So it's okay to be patient. It's okay to, if we want to get somewhere fast, we have to get there safely is a good way to put it. So don't react. Don't, pump the brakes. Don't just slam on the brakes. Then we go into Tuesday. Tuesday, another big day. There's just so much going on this week. Tuesday, we're going to be having Mercury go cazimi conjoin the Sun at 9 degrees of Cancer. And it's also going to it's going to sextile Uranus, which is pretty important for this Mercury retrograde, I think. And also during Tuesday, we're going to be having that moon trine Mercury. So there is this, there's a couple connections right now to Mercury. So Mercury's going to conjoin the Sun, go cazimi. This is when, thoughts become clear. This is when ideas become, extremely, everything kind of makes a little bit more sense. As Mercury's been retrograde, there's this, every time there's a Mercury retrograde, it's just always kind of like, okay, I get that there's a problem, but what really is the problem? And as Mercury conjoins the Sun, it's like, oh, I finally see what the issue is. And also with Mercury conjoining the Sun, there's finally the sense of finding a solution, or seeing a solution. And I also think here in America, with all of our problems that we're dealing with, I think you're going to start seeing a little bit more of a roadmap kind of come out as like what should be done, what needs to be taken care of. But as Mercury conjoins the Sun, for you guys personally, like ask yourselves and, find ways to discover like, hey, or find ways to realize what needs to be done. If you watch my Mercury retrograde video, I really talked about this is a Mercury retrograde in Cancer. Say what needs to be said. Take care of the necessities. Don't worry about everything else. And this Mercury conjoining the Sun time is kind of like realizing what that necessity is, realizing what actually needs to be said. And if you look here, where it's going to be sextiling Uranus, like almost to the minute. And so there's this, Uranus is kind of giving this helping hand here. And Uranus is in Taurus, the planet of liberation, freedom, excitement, but also volatility. And I really like volatility and liberation together because when you think about it, if you guys remember back in like 2008, there was a bunch of prison riots. Oh man, the fireworks are going off again. Fireworks are going off all day today, and I was really hoping no fireworks would be going off. I figured everyone is broke and can't afford any more of the fireworks that they spent all their money on. But anyway, back in 2008, there was a bunch of prison riots. And what's funny about a prison riot is prisoners can escape if they want to. Like, they can overwhelm the guards and everything like that. But there is this sense of volatility of like, if you try to break out of prison with all of your other prisoners, there's also a big chance of failure. Like, the volatility is extremely high. Like, yes, you can, but also there's a very clear reality of no, you can't. And I think, that analogy specifically has nothing to do with the Mercury-Uranus sextile, but just more of the analogy of like, if you're going to bust out of prison, like, yeah, you can do it and it's going to be very freeing and liberating, but if you don't, there's consequences to that. And with Uranus and Taurus being this liberator and volatility in the sign of Taurus, where we're talking about what is stable, what we're grounded in, what we see as valuable, I think there is a heightened idea of what we see as valuable. I think there is this change in what we see as valuable, and what we're grounded in is definitely, I guess, up in the air. Like, one second we see this is valuable, the next second this is really valuable. Like, it's really funny. I just read an article about how these two brothers made this invention about that can clean. They can clean the inside of an airplane cabin within 10 minutes. You might have read about it. I'll try to see if I remember right. If I remember, I'll try to post a link to this article below. But basically, they made this invention that cleans the inside of airplane cabins in like 10 minutes. It gets rid of all of the germs, and it failed. It failed like 5 or 6 years ago. But now, I don't remember if it's Amazon or some other big company just heard about it, and they're like, "Oh, we're buying that right now to clean all of our planes." Basically, that's kind of like the Uranus and Taurus. Like, something that wasn't really seen as valuable back then might be seen as valuable now. And to go back to Mercury conjoining the Sun here, making that sextile to Uranus. When we realize, oh, this is of necessity. Oh, maybe I do need this. It's kind of like that cleaning airplane invention. Like, oh, maybe this is really needed. Maybe this isn't just a waste of fucking money. Like, maybe this is extremely essential. That's actually a really good analogy for that. I think as we go into Tuesday, ask yourself, is there something that you might not have seen as valuable that you might have just put on the side? Is that going to come up as more worthy, as more valuable, something that can be more useful? And as Mercury's conjoining the Sun, this is going to be the time to, if you need to have those conversations with people, if you need to have those ideas, like, whatever you've been kind of thinking that needs to get addressed, that needs to be said, this is the time to say it. And you can do it in unique and different ways with Uranus here. Uranus is making this is making a sextile to Uranus. There's this helpfulness. There's this spur of the moment to do it, not necessarily something that's going to be, last second. Or not last second. This isn't necessarily something planned. This is something that is very last second. And with the moon first applying to Mercury and then separating from Mercury, there is this emotional volatility and like this intenseness with the emotions part of it. The only thing I suggest with that is like, it's like quicksand. If a lot of you guys, according to my statistics, most of you guys should be millennials here, so you guys definitely watched a lot of cartoons that involved quicksand, and we all know what to do in quicksand, and that is to not stand in the quicksand, it's to run across it so you don't get stuck, because if you stand in it, you'll actually sink. That is the moon in Scorpio. That is the best moon in Scorpio analogy I've ever thought of in my life. Literally, it's like quicksand. If you stand in it too long, if you get too in the emotional sulk, you're going to get stuck in that quicksand, and there ain't no way out of that shit. If you're going to go over the quicksand, you got to go over it quick. You got to, there's no way around it. You got to go over it quick. Don't get stuck in it. As the moon's in Scorpio, and if you have to have those conversations with Mercury conjoining the Sun, do it quick, do it fast. Don't get stuck in the emotions of it. Otherwise, it's not going to be helpful. Just like I said last week, you can't help other people put on their masks. Like the airplane analogy, you can't help other people put on their masks if you don't have a mask on and if you're not breathing. Then we get to July 1st. Yeah, Saturn's going back into Capricorn. Don't even know how to feel about it. It's interesting that we're already here. I feel like 2020's flown by really fast, but on Wednesday, July 1st, we've talked about this. You guys know about this already. We should all know that this is happening. Saturn's going to go back into Capricorn. Moon's going to go into Sag, make a trine to Mars, an opposition to Venus. The Saturn Capricorn part's kind of bad, but the Moon going into Sag, making a trine to Mars, opposition to Venus, kind of sounds fun. It actually sounds really fun in my opinion. So there is hope on Wednesday, but let's go ahead and look at it. Saturn is clearly still in Aquarius by 3:49 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, but later on in the evening, I mean, look, it's like literally at 00 Aquarius. Later on, it's going to go back into Capricorn. This is a pretty big fucking deal. My big question for you guys is, what have you learned? What have you experienced since Saturn's been in Aquarius? Because that's what's going to be what the next few years is about. You know, when Saturn went into Capricorn, and I talked about this when Saturn went to Aquarius, when Saturn went into Capricorn, it didn't retrograde back into Sagittarius. It was straight up in Capricorn. So we really have had Saturn in its home sign since the end of 2017. Then it was 2018, now 2019, going into 2020. Saturn's going to go back into Capricorn. So all of these themes from the end of 2017 into 2018, all of 2019, everything that we've been dealing with since then is all going to kind of come to, you know, our like attention. Saturn is now going to be in the same sign as where Pluto is, where Jupiter was, just how it was in December and January and February of this year. So there's a big coming back to that time in our lives pre-COVID. If you guys can remember stuff pre-COVID, this is what we're kind of going back to. And I think as Saturn goes back into Capricorn, before we can move forward with Saturn and Aquarius, we still have responsibilities and we still have obligations to handle with wherever Capricorn's at in our chart. You know, if Capricorn rules like your fifth house, before Saturn can go into your sixth and you can start taking on more responsibilities and dealing with more obligations with your work, with your day-to-day habits, with your routine, you still have to have obligations with, you know, either your children or your wants and desires or your romantic life. And there's this sense of like having to establish things there. You know, if Saturn's going back, you know, for your Taurus risings, before Saturn goes into your 10th house fully and you start establishing more responsibility and obligations and work and, you know, limits in your career, you still have to deal with what you believe, with what you are learning, with where you are growing and where you are going, with what you know and everything. And as Saturn comes back to Capricorn, in my opinion, this is my opinion, yes, it's the greater malefic. There is some negativity here. But what is really cool about this is that this is like you have a big project due and your deadline is like tonight. Saturn going back into Capricorn is like, we got to wrap this up now. We got to do this now. Saturn, just like Jupiter conjoining Pluto, there's this, you know, making bigger things big and smaller things small, or big things small, small things big, and this, you know, exploitation of it. Saturn is kind of going like, all right, I've got to wrap that up. I've got to take responsibility for that. I've got to put that under lock. I've got to put that in a box. I've got to be able to put that on a shelf. Jupiter going into Capricorn is making a whole mess. Jupiter in Capricorn is like, if you ever go into the little office at a construction site, they have papers everywhere. Like nothing about those places is organized. Saturn going back into Capricorn is like organizing the papers, getting the office back, you know, ready. And this is still Saturn retrograde, by the way. This isn't Saturn direct where it's like, oh, Saturn's now in Capricorn and, you know, things are serious, things are real. Saturn's retrograde. It's like before we can, you know, do things crazy like they are in Aquarius, like doing them unique and doing them different. Saturn going back in Aquarius is like, what is the textbook? What are the fundamentals? What are the basics here? So as Saturn goes back into Capricorn, fall back on the fundamentals, fall back on the basics, fall back on the rule book. If you're struggling to adapting to the new stuff, fall back on the things that work for you already, things that are tried and true and tested. And Saturn conjoining Pluto, yeah, there's this sense of like, that's not going to work forever, but that's going to help you get to this. That's going to help you get started. I think Saturn going back into Capricorn isn't going to be that bad. We've already dealt with 3 years in Saturn and Capricorn, and we survived, okay? And we survived Saturn-Pluto conjunction. We got to make it to Saturn in Aquarius, and I think as Saturn goes back into Capricorn, I think there is a sense of ease. I think there is a sense of, you know, we're still in pretty trying and pretty scary times right now, but at least with Saturn in Capricorn, I feel like there's more of a rule book. There's a better way of handling things. So, Don't be too scared. But the other thing is, on Wednesday, we are going to be having the moon go into Sagittarius, make that trine to Mars, make that opposition to Venus. And this is going to be later in the evening. But as the moon makes a trine to Mars, there's this moon's going to go into Sag, right? We're hopeful, we're optimistic. This is what we're envisioning. And the moon's going to make that trine to Mars where we're like, yeah, I can do this. Like Mars is in Aries now. We have the energy to do things. I'm going to tell you right now, and this is something if you've been watching my videos for a while now, I've been saying this since January. When Mars is in Aries, we're going to have all of the energy in the world. Use 80% of it. Save that 20% because we're going to need that 20% when Mars goes retrograde. But as the moon goes into Aries, makes that trine to Mars, this excitement, this envision, this ideal that we have it adds fuel to the fire with what Mars wants to do. It's like, oh, I have this idea, I can do it. I can put action to it right now. And as the moon also goes into Sag and makes that opposition to Venus, it's basically hitting Mars and then giving it to Venus. And Venus is basically going yeah, this is stimulating. This is exciting. This is what I want to connect myself to. Because Venus is now direct. Venus is now morning star. And this is why I don't think the Saturn in Capricorn isn't going to be that bad, because it's we go back into Capricorn. I think things get more simple. There's this sense of ease, just follow the fundamentals, do the basic shit. The real easy stuff, the stuff that don't do any of the crazy tricks. Just do the basic stuff that that's tried and true. And I think the moon and Mars and that Venus shit that's going on Tuesday is going to be able to have fun with it. You're going to be able to have more fun if you just rely on the basics and don't overextend yourself. Some people, you guys reach sometimes and you guys really stretch to make things happen. You don't need to do that. Don't pull a muscle and stay in your range, stay in your lane. So Wednesday, July 1st is a game changer also for you people who are investors out there and are also really tied to the economy. I think on July 1st, you're going to start seeing a lot of what quarter two's numbers were and things like that. And I think on the economic level, it's going to be more drastic and scary than on a personal level. But on a personal level, I think there is a sense of familiarity and conformity that makes things easier to do. So there is some good news there. We go to Thursday. Moon is void in Sag. I think it was Ryan Butler on Twitter. I am off Twitter right now, but I checked it. I peeped it once. I saw Ryan Butler. He made a tweet. He was like, people are like, oh, the moon's void, can't do anything. And he's doing a bunch of stuff. And I agree. Sometimes you want the moon to not be doing things. And as we go into Thursday, the moon's not really doing anything. Nothing's really going on, to be honest with you guys. Mercury's combust now. Venus is kind of just there. Mars is not doing anything. Jupiter's left Pluto. Saturn's now in Cap. Literally nothing's going on Thursday. So that's good news. We like when we like having a break, we don't work the whole 8 hours at work. We get our lunch and we get our, 15 minutes depending on what you do, but Thursday's not a lot's going on. And what I think is important though is, again, this is the moon void in Sag. This is the moon void in Sagittarius. This isn't about, we can just chill and relax. I think the moon in Sag is a time to dream. I think the moon in Sag is a time to idealize and envision. The South Node is there. So I think this is kind of a change in vision and a change in what we're dreaming of. And not necessarily saying what you're envisioning or what you're dreaming is done, but maybe it needs to be reworked a little bit more. The ruler of Sagittarius, Jupiter, is in Capricorn on top of Pluto. It's okay for things to transform, and it's not necessarily about your idea or your vision is no good anymore, but now with how things are, how can it be rewritten? How can it be re-envisioned now that we have this new information? And I think as the moon goes in Sag, this is just going to be a good day to dream, a good day to just think of shit, not getting super... It's not a bad day is what I'm trying to fucking say. More good news. Whoops, let me go back to this. Moon, on Friday, we have the moon still void as it goes into Capricorn. Whoops. This is cool because, like I said before, it's nice having the moon void. And like, look, this is on Friday. This is at 3:50 p.m. The moon is still very far away from entering Capricorn. So like, you guys on the East Coast will still have the moon void in Sagittarius. So think of Thursday and Friday as like days off. Nothing's really going on. We can kind of just chill. We can kind of just think about shit. And then late at night on Friday is when the moon will actually enter Capricorn, and we can get down to business. Let's get down to business to defeat the Huns, which is very appropriate because on Saturday, there we go. On Saturday, on the 4th of July, for one, I don't think you're gonna hear as many fireworks because if no one can afford a $400 medical expense, I don't think anyone can afford a second trip to the fireworks stand, and everyone already blew up their fireworks. So thank God, I'm fucking over the fireworks. But the full moon in Capricorn on the 4th of July, yeah, this is, I don't want to say it's exciting, but I think the moon in Capricorn is taking stock of what we have and what we don't have. What is needed, what is not needed. Again, sun's in Cancer, right? Like, oh, I need this. This is, essential to me. This is of a necessity. And this is the moon in Capricorn saying, I don't have the space for that right now. I don't really need to experience things this way right now. And if you look, this full moon, it's literally going to, there'll be this nice trine to Uranus, bam, full moon, and then it's going to conjoin Jupiter here and Pluto. This full moon in Capricorn is kind of looking at like, hey, what's the plan? That's the best way to look at it. Like, as we get to Saturday, it's what's the plan? How are we going to make that plan? How are we going to execute that plan? And what is the system? What is the strategy? What is the rule book? Like, like I said, like if we're going back to the fundamentals, what does the rule book say? Like, what are we gonna do here? And I think on a personal level, like, what's been crazy about COVID too is that like we don't know what the future looks like, and this isn't necessarily a time where we can plan on that. Like, we have to come up with a plan. We have to come up with a system right now. And I think this full moon in Capricorn is really looking at like what needs to be done and how are we going to get it done. If you guys watch my videos, at least once a month, the moon goes to Capricorn, and I always say the moon in Capricorn is a time to check out and check out emotionally to like do your work. Like, if you got broken up by your significant other right before you went into work, you can't just cry all day. I mean, you can cry all day at work. I'm not saying you can't, but like eventually you're going to have to get work done, and that's also good. Like, when you can, and people are going to like so many people are going to say something about this, but it is better to work your emotions off than to just like feel them, because when you like the idle hands of the devil's workshop. I'm not a Christian, but I fucking love that saying because it's so true. When you're busy, when you're doing stuff, it gives you time and space to literally process how you feel about things, and you're not just so emotionally overwhelmed. We can train our emotions, but our emotions aren't always right. They're just emotions. And I think that full moon in Capricorn is going to be a time of like, let's take a step back from the emotionality of things, and let's say, like, realistically, what's the plan? What do I need to do? What do I need to accomplish here? Because there's a lot going on and there's a lot of confusion. But now that Saturn's back in Capricorn and Mars is now in Aries, we have the energy and we have the willpower to do shit and get it done, because whatever we've been doing has been fucked. So I think as we go into Saturday, this full moon in Capricorn is like very real, very serious, very realistic, but in the good way, in the way that we want it to be, of coming up with a game plan, of coming up with a plan of action to do things with. That's Saturday. That's the 4th of July. I think, try to have fun on the 4th of July. But then we go into Sunday, and this is where the moon is going to make that conjunction to Jupiter, to Pluto. Here, let me zoom in a little bit more so there's a little bit more clarity there. As the moon makes that conjunction to Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, there's this sense of like us emotionally being invested into what Jupiter is wanting to expand. I think it's going to be easier on Sunday to get in what's the word I'm looking for? Like, more, it's going to be easier to get scared, right? The moon is literally next to Jupiter and Pluto, and Jupiter conjoining Pluto is like, hey, this is really scary and you should be scared. Isn't this scary? Yeah. Like Jupiter's like instigating the Pluto fear. And the moon's kind of like, yeah, no, it's not. I'm not scared. Haha. It's kind of like the moon in Capricorn conjoining Jupiter and Pluto is like when you are watching a scary movie with your older siblings as like a kid and you're like, I'm not scared. I can handle it. But deep down, you're actually terrified of watching this movie and you're actually really scared. But you just have to act tough because you want to act cool with your older siblings. That's kind of what's going on Sunday. So on Sunday, and I don't think that's bad. I think that shows a lot of courage of kind of like, you know, acting more mature, acting older, acting more wise, being able to just, you know, get through it, suffer through it. And I think on, you know, Sunday too, it's going to be kind of easy to, you know, get lost in those fears, you know, get sucked into what's kind of, it's not, I mean, it's hard not to get sucked into all of the fear and all of the shit that's kind of going on. But I also think on Sunday, there is this opportunity to really look at, you know, this is, again, like I've been saying with Jupiter and Capricorn, you know, less is more is less. What are the fundamentals and the basics that you can focus on and like really exploit that can help you grow? Like doing one thing consistently can help you grow in so many different ways. You know, rather than trying to tackle all of your problems in life, just have focus on one thing that you want to take care of in your life. And maybe that change on just that one thing is going to help you make all of the other changes in your life. Like rather than doing 10 things half-ass, do one thing whole ass, and it will definitely be a lot of a better outcome and a better feeling than doing half-ass of a bunch of stuff. So on Sunday, I think it's really a choice of what to do, but if there's anything that Capricorn has taught us, it is that we need to have a plan. We can't just bullshit this stuff. We can't just go off the cuff and be like, oh, this is what I'm going to do because I think this is going to work. Like, have a plan, do your research, like, you know what the fuck you're going to do, basically. And know how you're going to react. Know, you know, to go back to, you know, sorry, I talk about myself a lot. I'm a Leo, but to go back to like my sobriety journey and especially getting rid of nicotine, like not even my sobriety journey, just getting rid of nicotine. Because that was like, I've never had an issue with alcohol or weed, but it's nicotine that has been like, I swear to God, I thought I was going to have a seizure or a stroke with how much Juul pods I was smoking. But like, you can't just quit cold turkey and say, okay, I'm done. Like I had to have a plan. What am I going to do when those cravings kick in? What am I going to do when I'm pissed? What am I going to do when I'm upset? What am I going to do when I'm emotional? What am I going to do when I'm craving? I needed to have a plan. I needed to figure something out. And so with Moon conjoining Jupiter and Pluto and Capricorn, it's like quitting nicotine during a pandemic. It's like there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of things that are going to trigger you to want to smoke again. You have to have a plan to combat that. And with the Moon in Capricorn, you know, like the way that I kind of quit nicotine was like, I just told myself it's going to be 3 days of living hell. I'm probably going to be really mad. But if I can commit to 3 days of it, then I can get through the rest of my life without it. And it worked for me. The first day was really, really hard. Second day, it was a little bit less hard. And the third day was weird. The third day was like that. It's like when it's like a runner, like, you know how runners like have that runner's wall that they break through. That felt like that was like day 3 for me quitting nicotine. It was just like, you just keep going. Like you're just going. And at day 3, if you give up, you're going to just beat yourself up even more. So there's no point into quitting. And then after day 3, it was literally like what everyone says about quitting nicotine. They're like, oh, just make it past day 3 and you're fine. And I was like, I don't believe that. But then you make it past day 3 and you're like, oh, I'm actually fine. It's actually really easy. I think on Sunday, it's like day 3 of quit. Like you're signing up for quitting nicotine and you're signing up for like, you know, a very intense experience. This isn't a time to let your emotions control you. This is a time for you to control your emotions. This is a time for you to be serious and intentional with your feelings and your reaction to those feelings. We're all responsible with our actions, and our emotions charge our actions so much, and our emotions are wrong most of the time. And a lot of you will probably disagree with me with that, but your emotions are usually wrong. So let's control our emotions. That's that Moon in Capricorn. Let's not let the fears of everything else that's not working control us. And let's actually be responsible for ourselves, be responsible for how we're reacting, and let's have a plan. Let's do something about this. You know, I think there's a lot of hope in the near future, especially with this, but we have to, you know, be serious about it. And I think on Sunday is a good time to be serious. And then we go into next week. Next week, not bad. Next week, not a whole lot going on actually, but next week, coming off of this past week, I think is going to be more of getting back into our groove with things. So I think that's what I got for you guys. So thanks for tuning in. Don't have much to say. I will have an announcement next week. I'll actually have 2 announcements next week. The one thing I wanted to say, so I told you guys I was going to do monthly horoscopes. And I started doing monthly horoscopes. And this is something I just want to share, if you guys are still watching at this point. Monthly horoscopes, I'm not going to lie, really suck. It is so much work to record 12 signs of the same thing. And the thing is, I hate to be cocky right now, but I'm different. Like, I want to put out different content for you guys. I want to do something that's more enjoyable, that's going to last longer. I'm going through a lot of just personal changes with how I see my work as an astrologer at the moment. And I want to do something that's more meaningful and significant. And so I still want to do horoscopes. It's good for my YouTube page. It gets a lot of views. It gets a lot of subscribers. And you guys like it too. It's basically like a mini reading for you guys. But I honestly need help with the creativity side. If you guys have an idea of how I could better do a monthly horoscope that's easier for me, that's not as much work, because doing 12 videos of 20, 30 minutes, that's like 6 hours of straight recording. And having to do that every single month, that is a lot of time and a lot of emotional, and like, you have no idea how much talking about it in person is so much different than recording. There's so much more energy that goes into recording. So if you guys have ideas, I would love them. I'm gonna do July horoscopes, and they're gonna be different, and I don't know if what I'm gonna do is gonna last forever. So when I put it out, I'm going to get some feedback. Give me the honest feedback and tell me if you like it or not. And I may or may not continue it. I don't know. But that's basically where I'm at. As a YouTube astrologer, I want more evergreen content. I want things that are going to last. I do not like that most of my content expires within a week or a month. It makes me not feel, not worthy, but just doesn't make me feel like I'm doing good enough work. Like, I want to be putting something more valuable out there. And that's something else that I want to be working on too. So, please let me know what videos you guys would like to see that isn't, doesn't have an expiration date. I would love some insight on what you guys would love to see, so I could start working on that stuff. I will have an announcement in next week's video of something cool that's coming up too, to look forward to. That's what I've been meaning to say. And this is something I'll talk about more about next week, since I didn't talk about it a lot. I'm on Twitch. I told you guys I was going to be on Twitch. You guys told me if I was on Twitch to tell you guys. And now I'm telling you I'm on Twitch. Cam White Astro. I've went live once. I'm going to go live again. I don't know when, because I'm still figuring out a schedule. So if you are still watching this video, make sure, and if you are on Twitch, make sure you subscribe to my Twitch channel. I will be eventually doing more videos. The last Twitch video I did, you guys can watch it. It was actually really awesome. Check it out. It's a long video, but basically in my last Twitch video, I talked all about the Mars from basically July until May of next year. So if you want to know what's going on from July until May of next year, I did a whole live video about it. And then the end of it, I did chart readings for a bunch of people, which I think I'm going to continue that theme of doing chart readings for people. It was kind of chart roasts mostly. It was kind of stuff lighter stuff, but nothing super intense. But yeah, if you guys are on Twitch, follow me. Live streaming was so much fun. That was honestly, that was probably I love this setup I have, rather than setting up video and doing it all scripted and stuff. I love the live. This is more of me and my energy. So I want to keep continuing to do that. So yeah, if you guys are on Twitch, go ahead and follow me there. And I think that's the only announcements I have at the moment for you guys. So with that being said, yeah, thank you guys for being here. Again, if you want to book a reading, book below. I'd love to let you guys know what's going on. I'm probably going to be having a sale here soon. Yeah, I will be having a sale here soon. I meant to actually say that before, but I did not plan that. So much has been going on for me in my life. I'm going to have a sale here soon on readings, probably next week, so keep out for that. But yeah, book a reading with me. Also, if you guys like this, my PayPal link actually works now below. So if you guys want to leave a donation or a tip, I'd super appreciate that. You help feed me and pay my bills. So that's super appreciative. I can't thank you guys enough for that. And thank you guys for being here. I love you. This has been, I'm liking this new weekly setup that I have. And during this time of crisis. It's been really nice to have these conversations with you guys. So the one thing I also want to leave to end off with, to actually end here, because I know I've said I'm done like 10 times. The week before, I told you guys what's changed. I asked you guys to tell me what's changing in your life. And then last week I asked you, what are you guys excited about? This week, what is your plan? I want to know, like, so many of you guys said, oh, I'm excited for this. Oh, I'm excited for that. And it was so cool reading about it. Like, I meant to write this down and talk about this before, but what you guys wrote down was so cool reading. Like, so many of you guys are just taking on so many big changes in your life, and that's so fucking exciting. Like, that's so cool. But now this week, I want you guys to tell me, what is your game plan? Like, not just, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Like, tell me, like, what is your game plan for you to get to that next step in your life? Like, it's not easy to take on new adventures right now. Like, if someone were to tell me, I'm kind of scared of doing these new things because of everything that's going on and all the uncertainty, I wouldn't disagree with them. That's okay, because shit's crazy right now. But, a lot of you guys are taking on new adventures, and that's pretty admirable for doing that during this time of uncertainty. So I want you guys to tell me what your plan is. I want you guys to tell me how you're going to get there. What are you going to be? What changes are you taking on? What is Saturn and Capricorn doing for you in your life? What are the responsibilities and the roles that you're going to take on to get to that next level? Because I think that's going to be a huge deal coming up. Like, if you have these big dreams and ambitions and goals, you're going to have to follow and execute a real solid plan to get there. Not saying you can't do it, but you're going to have to follow the plan, make the plan, stick to the plan, always deliver, just like I said a couple weeks ago. But let me know below what your guys' plan is. I want to know what you guys are doing, what you guys are dedicated to. And with that being said, thank you guys again. I love you so much, and I'll be seeing you next week.